If you are somewhat knowledgeable about Marvel Comics from the 1990s, then you almost certainly know just by looking at my channel name that I am a fan of Marvel Comics' 2099 universe. Earlier in my days of first getting into comics, I became a huge fan of this small corner of Marvel Comics, and I have always wanted to see a return to this world. In 2009, I kinda got my wish in the form of a 6-part story called Timestorm, 2009-2029. This story is written by Brian Reed with art by Eric Battle, Wesley Craig, and Fraser Irving. When I say I only kinda got my wish for a return to the world of 2099, what I meant was that the 2099 universe actually only lasted from 1992 to 1997. Since the 2099 universe ended, we've seen a few different stories that use the name 2099 and share a couple of minor similarities, but very little else. Much like the Robert Kirkman series of one-shots from 2004, this story is more or less a remake of the 2099 concepts that people remembered the best, but are not actually continuations of those concepts and characters. This relaunch/revisit, much like the series of one-shots written by Kirkman, tries to do way too much with way too many characters. Off the top of my head, we have 2 Wolverines, 2 Spider-Men, a Punisher, Shakti Haddad, a remake of a character from the original X-Men 2099 called Cerebra, and a Ghost Rider. In the span of 6 issues, with so much crap happening all at once with so many characters, I have trouble trying to care about any of these guys at all because there's so much going on with so many other characters. Just as one character starts to take center stage and you think you're about to latch on to this character, the story shifts its focus to someone else. Imagine, if you would, a 2-hour television pilot was going to remake all 6 Star Wars movies, as well as some of the more well-known concepts and characters from the expanded universe, in 2 hours. That, of course, would be ridiculous. Nobody would like it, and in the end, you'd have all kinds of characters and storylines that were set up in the hopes of being followed up in an ongoing television show. But the television series never came. I don't really know what was going on in the heads of the people who made this Timestorm miniseries, but it definitely feels like they wanted to do this as a sort of pilot for a brand new 2099 universe. But like any pilot that isn't picked up, it's hard to get invested because if you do, you're the one guy who has his hand up in the air wanting a high five, but nobody is there to supply. Maybe this isn't really what was supposed to happen with this story. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be the beginning of an ongoing universe. There are a few characters who die here, so if it was supposed to be a new ongoing world, then they'd have only had 1 or 2, maybe 3 titles to start with, I guess. Either way, this book by itself is a huge mess. To make matters worse, when this story was coming out, it was a 4-issue miniseries with 2 one-shots that were integral to the story. I'm not sure why this couldn't have been just a 6-issue miniseries instead of doing some weird thing with 2 one-shots that really do act like issues 3 and 4 of a 6-issue miniseries. So if you are a back-issue bin hunter and you've found the 4-issue mini Timestorm, you have not yet found the complete story, thanks to the bizarre logistics of the people behind this story. So aside from this book being really sloppy and throwing too many characters in my face, what else is going on? Well, as near as I can tell, there's a hologram computer program called Lila. She works for a huge corporation called Alchemax, run by a man named Tyler Stone. Lila is manipulating Stone into sending an unhinged police officer, Jake Gallows, to the year 2009, where he will kill superheroes. Right off the bat, I don't know why any character in this story does anything he or she does. Lila is pulling all of the strings, and I don't know why she wants to do this. At the very end, we see that a piece of her programming remained in the year 2009 after everything seemed to be patched up, and she decides that her machinations were supposed to have torn up the time stream, and if it didn't work, she'll just have to try again. You've heard the phrase that a hero is just as good as his villain. I think that is an apt phrase to discuss here. A superhero story, ideally, is about a protagonist reacting to something the antagonist did. Auric Goldfinger is planning to bomb Fort Knox. James Bond has to stop him. We understand why Goldfinger is doing what he's doing. There is no ambiguity or confusion at the end. His motives are reprehensible, but we understand easily why he's doing what he does. Now look at the Timestorm mini. I don't have any clue why Lila wants to destroy the time stream. Because she's evil, I guess. So why does Tyler Stone want to send a deranged cop into the past? Again, this is never made clear. He says it will make him money, but I fail to see how killing people in the past will make him richer than he already is. From what we see in this world, Tyler Stone very nearly runs the corporation of Alchemax, as far as I can tell. Alchemax owns the image of Captain America and Spider-Man at least, and probably more superheroes that we don't see. So they make money by using their images in commercials. So why would Stone want them dead via Jake Gallows? Wouldn't this lose money for him and Alchemax? Jake Gallows is the only character here who I can kinda understand why he's doing what he's doing. He's crazy, no ifs, ands, or buts. I would sit here and question why he thinks killing Wolverine will do any good for his dead family, but since he's crazy, I'll let it pass. I'm spending so much time on the villains because this is where a story often falls apart. A villain does something, a hero reacts, and the story is usually the progression of the characterization of the hero and the focus on the decisions he makes. Anything else is just icing on the cake. But if you have villains making decisions that make no sense, then the whole story falls apart, like if you tried to build a real-life house out of concrete, wood, and mortar, and the base of the house is made out of Legos and Tinker Toys. So what about the heroes? Well, we have Miguel O'Hara, who is the Spider-Man of the future. Mostly, we're seeing how the machinations of the villains affect the origin of Miguel as the future Spider-Man. Not really any character growth at all. He teams up with the Spider-Man of the past, and he learns superficial things like how to swing on his web and how to shoot his web at a bad guy. But I don't know much about this guy except that he's an outcast among his peers. But since we don't really get a change in character of who he is or how he acts, I can't really say much else about him. We have Shakti, who is a weird brain-for-hair mutant girl, and she doesn't really do much but provide exposition and give weird future visions to characters to get them on their way to where the plot needs them to be. I don't feel any emotion toward Miguel's path to becoming Spider-Man because Shakti is telling him everything that's going to happen. You will take his name and you will follow in his path, etc. I don't want to watch the story of a hero who does what he does because someone tells him that that's what he will do. I want to see the story of a hero who does what he does because he's decided it's the right thing to do. And I get the feeling that Miguel has maybe made that choice. Peter keeps telling him to throw away the costume and never be Spider-Man again. And Miguel, at times, says he is definitely going to do that. And then other times, he's arguing with Peter, saying that he can do some good as Spider-Man. So I don't know if Miguel has actually come to any decision about what to do with himself or not. And speaking of Peter, what a moronic thing to say. Isn't Peter's whole deal, with great power comes great responsibility? And that, taken down to its most basic interpretation, often means, if you have superpowers, then use them in a responsible way. Peter often does this by saving lives and punching bad guys. So a way to not use your powers responsibly would be if someone told you to throw your costume away and never use your powers again and you listened to him. I find it very strange that Peter is telling this kid to hang up the cape and call it a day. Maybe it's because Miguel is dressed kinda sorta similar to Peter, so Peter feels like Miguel is trying to be like him, and Peter doesn't want that responsibility. Peter even says he doesn't want to go back to his own time and be worried about Miguel. But does Peter worry about the New Mutants or the New Warriors or the Young Avengers whenever they go and fight bad guys? That usually seemed to be Captain America's thing. I don't know. It seems like Peter is preaching pretty hard against his own message, from what I can see. The X-Men I'm not even going to get into. There are 4 or 5 X-Men in the future, and they are basically vehicles for the artists to draw neat-looking superpowers. I do like that future Wolverine refuses to tell present-day Wolverine how the mutants start getting born again. Bear in mind, this story is from 2009, at a point when the mutant births were not happening at all. He says that present-day Wolverine has some air quotes hard decisions to make, and that he doesn't want to cloud his younger self's head by telling him what will happen / what did happen. And I'm not sure if Brian Reed actually knew what was in store for the X-Men books over the course of the next couple of years, but I like to think that this was a sly reference to certain stories I haven't read, like Schism and AVX. Anytime a story goes into the future for some reason, I always hate it when that future has all kinds of potential references to what would actually be happening, in the future of the series, and the creator of that story doesn't take those opportunities. Maybe that's not happening here, maybe it is. If it is, then I can go on pretending there is at least one aspect of this book that I liked. If you were assuming that I was going to recommend everyone not buy this book, then that was a safe assumption. This book is a mess, and it doesn't really offer anything worthwhile, which is sad for me to say because I wanted this book to be good. Oh well, maybe next time the Marvel Universe takes another dip into the year 2099, it'll be better. Who knows?